Well, good afternoon. The other day we took this Unitas Pocket Watch apart as it didn't run, and discovered that it had developed some rust on the winding gears, and that rust and debris had worked its way down the watch train, and there was no rust anywhere else other than on 3 small pieces. So we derusted it, and they come out really nice after they've been cleaned. What you're looking at right now is a cleaned watch, and it just came out of the cleaning machine here a couple hours ago. So I thought what I'd do, I got a little time here, I'm going to go ahead and reassemble this for you and show you how my take on it is. This is how I've been doing it for 30 years. I think I graduated from watchmaker school in 1973. If memory serves me correct. So, and a lot has changed since then. I developed my own little technique on how to do things, and hopefully you can, especially those who are just trying to buy old pocket watches and do a little cleaning and work on them. This is a nice little example of a modern one, and it'll give you an idea of how to do it. And maybe we can get into a few older ones and do some regular cleaning and fixing on those too. Especially if you're buying old antique pocket watches and have little or no experience in how to service and clean them. This is a gift in the old keister. So we'll continue now to get this done for you. In the first video I showed you how to peg all the jewels and clean everything, and so you need to go through that one if you didn't do that. And we'll start now. But I'm using a watch holder. It's not the right one, but it works. So we'll get that out of the way. So one of the first things I want to do is I want to examine the mainspring in its barrel. And it looks to me like it's going to be fairly clean. So there's another thing here. There's a bunch of different kinds of oilers for watches, and it seems like the trend now is to use these little dropper ones. Let's see if I can show you one right there. I don't like them. But you know, they're too small. They're too hard to hold on to. So I made a bunch of handles, and they're a little bit longer, so they're a lot easier to work with than these little things here. I do have them on my website, mybenchjeweler.com, and you can buy a set of them if you want to try a little bit nicer handle to hold your oilers with, especially on clocks and stuff. These don't take much. You can't hit them on anything. I do have quite a few inserts for these. I show you that probably on another video again. So anyway, we'll start. Now with the mainspring you can use a heavier grade oil. So you want to just dip it in there. And you put about 5 or 6 good sized drops in here. Yeah, see, I don't like these that well. Then you always want to go, try not to touch anything. Now I'm using my fingernails, so now you always want to come in here and put a little oil right there, right in the loop, right here. Alright, now that we've got that oil, we'll drop that. The next thing we want to do is we want to put the barrel arbor back in position. Okay, no rust on that. I just wanted to make sure we got everything out of there. So find a big enough hole for it. Alright, got that done. And we'll put the lid on. Now this particular one, it doesn't matter where the lid goes. There's no T-hook on the mainspring, so use the back of your tweezers until you see it snap on. Now I don't like seeing that on there. Let's see. Yeah, I got some here. This rubber stuff is to remove debris. This didn't, I think it's just spots or stains. Alright, that's oiled. It's just oiled around the arbor. Now, what I want to do to show you, this is the check that you need to make. Put your screwdriver very tightly against that and check to see whether you have any play in the barrel. And we don't, so that's a good thing. No play is good. Alright, that's done. Okay, the next step is to put the barrel back into the watch. Let's see if we can get that in there. So we got the center and the, what is that, fourth? Oops, put it in too soon. Okay, we got the barrel arbor in. So the next one goes in is the sweep second gear and the fourth gear. And the center wheel, center gear, and then we want to put the escape wheel in. Alright, now we got those in there in that order. So let's see if we can get in here a little tighter. Oop. About as close as I'm going to be able to get. Now this plate's been cleaned. Well, the whole watch has been cleaned, but we're going to go ahead and put this bridge plate on. Take care to make sure that all of your gears line up before you put any screws in. or you'll snap a pivot off one of those gears and you're done for. And I've been very careful using just my fingernails so that I don't touch these plates, but occasionally I always double check to make sure. Alright, that's done. So now we want to put the two, oh, how lucky I was there. Now I haven't cinched those. Just wanted to make sure my gears are all in position. Now this has no cap jewels on the top here or the bottom side. Some of these do, especially on the older ones. So you'll have to be very careful. You would oil those first and then put the cap screws on and the cap plates. And on this one we don't have to. So next thing we want to do, drop a plate. Next thing we want to do is get our barrel plate on. And we're going to just touch that wheel. Just want to see that I've got a little bit of free train. Before we didn't have any train that was free on this thing. It was all jammed up. If you watched the video the first time, you'll notice that these gears were stuck in there, and that's because there was a lot of debris around the gears and it was jamming them up. So we've made a nice turn around there and we know that everything is right. So we'll go ahead and put some more screws in. Once again, we'll use the heavier oil. You can always tell on the winding wheel here, and it always uses a big flat screw. And on these screws, if you see a double line on them, that means it's left-handed. This one's white. Now I'm going to look to see whether I have train here. I don't have any backlash. I was hoping without even oil in it that I'd have a little. So we're going to look for that here in a minute. So the next thing I want to do now, this is Pocket Watch oil. It's real light grade. It's a Mobilis oil. Don't use any heavy oil on these. We're going to go ahead now and cinch all these screws down. That is a necessity. You have to cinch them. You don't get them tight. Just don't twist one off. But just snug it. It's called cinching, I think. That's what I call it. I want to get these oiled next. I'm just making sure that there's no big blobs of oil on these. A little bit of backlash came in there. Yep. You just barely see it. I'd like to see a little more, but that's good enough. So you know that that's in good shape. Next thing we want to do is we want to oil the escape wheel. We want to oil the teeth on the escape wheel. And I don't oil each one of them. I oil every other one. Try to. Okay, the way escape wheel is oiled. Next thing we want to put in there is the pellet fork. Now this needs a lot of care that you don't bust one of those pellets off of, or the pivots, either one. Pellet bridge. Now see if we can get that in there. And that's going to take a smaller screw. No. I dropped my cell phone yesterday in the sink of water. I had it in my shirt pocket, so I disassembled the cell phone, but I couldn't save it. So then I had an older one with a broken screen on it, and I had a bunch of old phones that I've had for my brothers and who knows. So I took one of the screens off of the old one and put it on my cell phone, put a new button on it, and it's going to get me by until I can order a new phone. But they're so doggone expensive, I think I'll put it off for a while. I'm just going to wind this just a little bit. I don't want to push that screw down any tighter till I make sure that I have power. And we do. See how can I get that any closer? Let's see if I can. See how that's moving in there? That's a good sign that this watch is going to run. Now before I go any further, I have to turn the watch back over and put the pieces on the back side. We'll put the jewel in. There's a balance jewel and a cap jewel that go in here, and I'm going to carefully open the shock spring up. These will break if you just look the other way or blink an eyelash. You'll have a broken one, and they're a stinker to fix, so we don't want that to happen. So I'm going to use a different pair of tweezers. These are a lot better. These are pointed. Let's see, can you see? Yeah. I have to keep thinking whether I'm in the way or not. I'm trying to stay out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. Oop, that has a piece of lint on it. I don't want that. Okay, the shock spring door is loose. Now it's up in the up position. that out of the way. These are tricky, people. So when you're doing this, be really super careful and super gentle, or you will have it on the floor. Okay, let's see if we can get out of the way here so you can see what I'm going to do. Right there is the jewel for the balance. We're on the back side, so I want the thinner cap jewel. And we're going to turn this one around, and I gotta use a different kind of oiler. I'm gonna get this out of the way. And we're going to carefully oil these. Now you want just a drop of oil on the top and the bottom. Since I did this once and then I got too much oil on it, so I want to put it back in the one dip. Alright, try it again. I just want to drop in the very center. So, there we go. Perfect. You want your oils to be in the very center of where the hole jewel is. And the reason for that is so that your oil doesn't pull to one side. I'm going to turn it upside down. And we do have capillary attraction. My doors fell down. My shock spring door. There we go. Got the shock spring up in the air. Got my balance jewel and cap jewel in position. And I have it locked. That's the scary part of the whole thing. Once you've got that mastered and the dexterity in your hands works with a tiny little piece like that. You're home like your home base. You're on your home base, I guess they'd call that, wouldn't they? So, all right, we got that one done. So we're gonna come around to the opposite side. I'm gonna put this back in the holder, give it a little snug. And our next situation here is to put the balance wheel back in. Now I one dipped that hairspring earlier this morning, and so it should be oil free and dry, and hopefully magnetic free. We may have to demagnetize it, and we'll check it in a second, but for right now we're going to put that hairspring back in. And it has to drop in between there so I can operate back and forth like this. And it's very critical, I don't know, it's very critical that you get it in there. Trying to keep everything lined, doing the best I can here. So okay, we're in now. The cap jewel and the balance jewel is not in this yet. I'm going to do that next. Same procedure. Now this cap jewel is heavier and it goes to the top. It takes years of practice, I think, to understand, but I could tell the different shade of the jewel. It was a little darker, so I knew it was a little thicker. So we'll do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and oil it. Right in the middle. I don't know if you can see what I did or not. So right here is a jewel with the cap jewel on it. If we did this right, this should work. Undoing the shock spring door. This one's a little bigger than the back one, so it was a little easier to get to. Yeah, we might have a problem yet. And we have a balance wheel that's operating. Okay, the next thing to do is to go ahead and start doing some adjustments here and there. If there's nothing different, I'll probably just move on to the reassembling the winding gear mechanism, which is, I'm going to lift this up so you can see it. This is the winding mechanism for this. So I'm going to do a little check in here, make sure I got plenty of power on that balance wheel. We had none on that before, so after we cleaned it, got all the debris out of it, and put it back together, put the oil back in properly. Winding gears. We now have a nice looking little pocket watch. This which is I think the clutch lever, detent. So I'll be back. And this is the set bridge, which puts a little spring pressure here. There's also a spring in here, and that pushes against this clutch to hold the clutch gear either into the winding position, or you can snap it backwards and put it into set the hands. So we've got that done. Now we're going to put that bridge on. Well, we'll give it a try. Now, we want a dab of oil right in here. See if I can, yep, dab of oil right here, and a little dab of oil right there. Next thing we want to do is tighten that back down. Not a good tool to use. We are cinched. Alright. Now I put a little dab of oil on the center wheel. That's for the cannon pinion to sit down on there. Now, when you do this, do not leave this on a soft cushioned area like I am right now. You want that up here on top so that the jewel down below is firm against this. And we are now in. Otherwise you might snap that jewel on the back side. Dial wheel. Dial washer. Now this is another thing I forgot to tell you. When you take the dial off, which is right here, make sure you put the dial screws all the way in before you put it in the ultrasonic cleaning machine, if you have an ultrasonic. There's 2 dial screws on this particular one, and I didn't tell you about that. I undid them, took the dial off, and then I screwed the dial screws in tight. Otherwise they might vibrate loose and you might have a dickens of a time finding them. So that's just food for thought that I didn't tell you about earlier. So we're ready to reassemble the dial. Loosening the dial screw. Now, watch paper is a nice thing to have. You can wipe that dial off. Careful not to push on it. Last thing you want to do is crack some enamel. We're in. Oh, my tweezers go. We're about done. There you go. Easy peasy, simple as that. We'll give her a little, you can already see she's cranking right around. Put her back in the case and time her out for a couple of days and give it back to the customer. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Probably wasn't the easiest one to show you, but I certainly enjoyed doing it for you, and hope you enjoyed it yourself. As always, thank you for watching My Bench Jeweler, and we'll see you next time.